Good evening, students. Welcome to Sankalp learning classes. I hope all are ready to listen the class. Be ready with your notebook and pen. So please note down the important points. So one of the very important chapter for your board exam. Okay. Yes, just a minute. So first we should know what is the meaning of the life processes. You know that life means that is living, right? So living beings perform some processes in their body to live, so that is called as the life processes. Before that, so you should know the difference between the living and the non-living, right? So here, how do we tell that difference between the alive and what is not alive? So how do you say something is alive and which is not alive? So we observe some characteristics, right? So we observe some characteristics like growth and movement and the respiration. By observing these important characters, we can decide something is alive or not. Am I right? Yes. So criteria to decide something is alive. So it may be growth or movement and respiration. So these are the some features that we can observe in the living organisms, in including plants also, right? But so is this three characters are enough to decide the something is alive or not? No, which is not enough to decide something is alive or not, because we can observe the growth in animals and plants, movement also we can observe, respiration also we can observe in plants and animals. But when you observe some uh, organisms, for example crocodile, so which is near the lake or anywhere. So if you observe the crocodile sometime, it looks like there is no respiration or there is no movement, so that you can observe, but we cannot decide the crocodile is dead, right? So but how we can decide the organism is not dead, that is alive? So here in that organisms, the organisms which do not show the growth and movement or respiration, so in a particular time, so we have to observe some very small particles movement. So these small particle movements that takes place inside the cell, but so that cannot be observed or visible to the naked eyes. For example, movement of the molecules that takes place inside the cell. Then what is the meaning of life processes? So not only growth, movement and the respiration, these criteria, including the small scale, the movement of particles that we have to consider for something is alive or not. Okay, so that is the important thing. So then what is life processes? What is the definition of the life processes? Life processes are the basic processes in organism, in living organisms, which are necessary for maintaining the life. So these processes which are maintaining the life. The basic life processes are nutrition, respiration, transportation and the excretion. ಸೊ ಈ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ರೆಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೀಷನ್, ಸೊ ಇವೆಲ್ಲವುಗಳಿಗೆ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ? ಲೈಫ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಸಮ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಸ್ ದಟ್ ಟೇಕ್ಸ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಇನ್ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಬಾಡಿ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ we are studying in detail about the nutrition, respiration, transportation and excretion. Okay, so these all processes that we are studying in detail in this chapter. I hope You got all these points? Let us move to the first important topic, that is the nutrition. So, what is nutrition? So, what is the definition of the nutrition? Process to transfer source of energy from outside the body of the organism, it is called food, to the inside. So the source of energy that is transferred to the inside the body of the organism from outside. So what is the that source of energy called? The source of energy that is called as food, right? So how do you define the nutrition? The process of transfer of the source of energy from outside the body of the organism, it is called food, to the inside the inside, that is called as the nutrition. Okay, then what is the respiration? How do you define the respiration? So this nutrition, respiration, these all are life processes. Respiration is a biological process in living organisms that involves the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide to release the energy. So, what is respiration? Where the exchange of the gases takes place. So, the organisms which take up the oxygen from the environment and release the carbon dioxide, that is how you define the respiration. Then the next one, that is the transportation. So what is transportation? So commonly we use this word, right? Transportation. Transferring from goods or something from one place to another place. So here in case of the life process, it is the process by which food, oxygen and water and waste products carried from one part of to the other part of the body. The organisms, in every organism's body, so there should be a transfer of the food, oxygen and water and waste products from one, that should be carried from one place to the another part of our body, right? So that is called as the transportation. Then excretion. What is excretion? So excretion means that is the process of removal of the waste products, that is mainly nitrogenous waste. So that is called as the excretion. So about these all life processes we are studying in detail. Are you ready to listen? Are you ready to learn these topics in detail? I hope all are ready. Yes. Then nutrition. Already we defined the nutrition. Here you can see the transfer of the source of energy, that is called as the food, from outside the body of the organism, which is called as food, to the inside the body. That process is called as the nutrition. Okay. So this process which is called as the nutrition. Then so we can divide the modes of nutrition, means based on how they obtain their food, how they obtain their nutrition. So there are mainly two types of the nutrition. The first type is autotrophic nutrition. So this is the first type of the nutrition. Auto means the organisms which are able to synthesize their own food, their this type of the nutrition, that is called as the autotrophic nutrition. The second type, that is the heterotrophic nutrition. Heterotrophic means the organisms which depends on the plants or plant products directly or indirectly. So that is called as the heterotrophic nutrition. So the organisms which are not able to produce their own food, so they depend on the plants, directly on plants, sometimes indirectly on plants, that is called as the heterotrophic nutrition. Okay, then again, this heterotrophic nutrition, that is divided into three types: saprophytic nutrition, holozoic nutrition, and parasitic nutrition. What is this saprophytic nutrition? Saprophytic nutrition means the organisms which obtain the nutrition from the dead and decaying materials, that is called as saprophytic. So we'll learn about this in detail. Then holozoic and the parasitic. So in detail in the next slides. Okay. So let us start with the first one, autotrophic nutrition. Okay. Then heterotrophic and their types. So in this type of nutrition, organisms able to produce their own food from simple substances like carbon dioxide, water, and chlorophyll and the sunlight. So they use the simple substances like carbon dioxide, water, chlorophyll, and the sunlight. They use these all simple substances and they produce their own food. So this type of nutrition is called as autotrophic nutrition. The process of production of food, this process is known as photosynthesis. What is this process is known? It is known as photosynthesis. For example, plants and some bacteria. Plants and some bacteria like cyanobacteria, they they prepare their own food by photosynthesis. So that is called as the autotrophic nutritions. Okay, so ಈ autotrophic nutrition ಗೆ ನಾವು plants ಅನ್ನ ಕಾಮನ್ ಆಗಿ plants ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, which perform the photosynthesis, and bacteria. So not all bacteria, some bacteria. Okay, then so here you should know what is autotrophic nutrition and what is photosynthesis. Then, so let us learn in detail what is the photosynthesis. Photosynthesis ನೀವು ಕಾಮನ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಲ್ತಿರ್ತೀರ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹೈಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಈ photosynthesis ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕಲ್ತಿರ್ತೀರಾ. So photosynthesis, it is the process by which plants prepare their own food using carbon dioxide, water, and presence of sunlight and the chlorophyll. So it is the process by which plants prepare their own food by using carbon dioxide and water and in the presence of the sunlight. Here you can see the video of the photosynthesis. The plant which is using the sunlight and the carbon dioxide which is present in the environment, water, minerals which is present in the soil, and the chlorophyll which is present in the leaf. By using these all factors, the plants are able to produce their own food, and the prepared food is carbohydrate and stored in the form of starch. The carbohydrate that is stored in the form of starch. Okay. Then what is the chemical equation of the photosynthesis? One of the very important chemical equation. What is the chemical equation of the photosynthesis? See here. So plants need carbon dioxide, right? Carbon dioxide, and they need water and also sunlight and in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, which produces the carbohydrate or starch. So that is glucose C6H12O6. Okay. Then, so in this process, oxygen is also released, O2, and also small amount of water is also released in this process. So this is the chemical equation, but you have to write the balanced chemical equation. So balanced chemical equation already you learnt in the first chapter. how to balance the chemical equations. Okay, so while balancing, so the number of atoms which is present in the left side, that should be equal to the products, right? Here C6 is there, but here only one carbon atom is there. So 6 CO2. Okay. Then count the number of oxygen. 12 plus 1, 13 here. Here 6 plus 2, 8, 1, 9. So you have to balance this. So 12 H2O, if you put 12 H2O, so the number of oxygen atoms, that will become 24. And here also you put the 6O2 and 6H2O, the total number of oxygen, that will become 24. Then so if you compare the carbon, hydrogen and the oxygen, so the number is same in the left side of the reaction, that is before arrow mark and after the arrow mark. Okay, so this is the balanced chemical equation of the. Okay, so this is the very important reaction. So you have to write the balanced chemical reaction, balanced chemical equation of the photosynthesis process. So this is 1 mark or 2 mark question. Very important. Practice this reaction. Okay. Then so the following events occur during the process of photosynthesis. So what are the events that occur in the photosynthesis? These three important steps you have to mention. Very, very important. They'll ask these three steps. You have to write it in 3 points itself. Okay. In the first step, absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. What are the steps involved in the photosynthesis? The question will be like this: what are the steps involved in the photosynthesis? The first step is absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. Then conversion of, so you know that chlorophyll, so which is present in the leaves of the plants, and this chlorophyll which absorb the sunlight, which is able to absorb the sunlight. And the second step in the photosynthesis, that is conversion of light energy to chemical energy and splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and the oxygen. So here the conversion of chemical energy and light energy to the chemical energy. So the light energy is absorbed and that light energy is converted to the chemical energy, and splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen, H2 plus O2. Okay, so that is in the second step. And reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. So these are the three main important events of the photosynthesis. So ಈ ಮೂರು ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ರೈಟ್ ದ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ 3 steps ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಫೋಟೋಸಿಂಥಸಿಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಈ ಮೂರು ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೀವು ಬರಿಬೇಕು. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇನೆ. Then so the chlorophyll, so which is present inside the cell, right? You know that the leaf cells, so this is the leaf cells, that is called as the palisade cells, which contain the chlorophyll. ಇಲ್ಲಿ cells ಏನ್ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಪ್ಯಾಲಿಸೇಡ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಏನಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಸೊ ಈ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕ್ಲೋರೋಫಿಲ್ ಕಾಣಿಸುತ್ತೆ, and this is the sponge cells. Okay, so when you take the cross section of the leaf, ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಲೀಫ್ ಅನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡು ಅದರ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡಾಗ, ಅದರ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಏನಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಈ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಲೋರೋಫಿಲ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೀವು ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಕೋಪ್ ಅಂಡ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ದೆನ್ the very important structure which is helpful in the photosynthesis process, that is about the stomata. Okay, so this diagram is very important. So ಈ diagram ಅನ್ನ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. So draw the neat label diagram of open stomata and the closed stomata. Okay, so this is the open stomata and this is the closed stomata. So what is the open and closed stomata? What is this stomata? So these are the tiny pores present in the leaves through which exchange of gases takes place. So these are the tiny pores present in the leaves through which exchange of gases takes place. Okay, so the small pores, you know that pores means small holes where the exchange of the gases. You know that in the process of photosynthesis oxygen is released and the carbon dioxide is required. So how the carbon dioxide which is present in the environment, that is transferred to the leaf cell, that is through the stomata, and the oxygen released in the plant, so that is not required for the plant, right? So that should be released, that should be go out from the plant, but there is no specialized organs for the removal of the oxygen, so they have the stomata. So which is the main part where the exchange of the gases takes place. And also transpiration means that is the loss of water also takes place to the stomata. Okay, so this is the open stomata. So means where the exchange of the gases takes place. Here you can see the stomatal pore and the guard cells. So here bean shaped guard cells. So these are the guard cells which look like a bean shaped, right? So bean shaped guard cells that you can observe like this, and inside that chlorophyll also you can observe, and very important is, so that is the stomatal pore you can observe. But closed stomata means, see here, the stomatal pore that is closed means there is no exchange of the gases and there is no transpiration process takes place. Okay, so that is about the stomata. Then each stomata has pair of guard cells which controls the opening and closing of stomata. So the bean shape. So the shape of the guard cells, that is the bean shape. So this bean shaped guard cells which work like this. Can you see here? Can you see this? So when they are closed, there is no gases, exchange of gases. When they are open, the exchange of gases takes place like this. Large amounts of water can also lost through these stomata. So that is called as the transpiration. The guard cells swell when water flows into them and causing the stomatal pore open, and similarly pore closes when the guard cells shrink. Okay, when the water is less, so there is no exchange of the gases or the loss of water takes place. So this is how stomata works. See the video. Yes. So now the stomata is open, carbon dioxide that move inside the cell. Then when the water and oxygen that is move out through the stomatal pore. Okay. So see how the movement of guard cells, the bean shaped structures takes place. Okay. Then we learned about the autotrophic nutrition. What is autotrophic nutrition? And the photosynthesis process, the steps involved in the photosynthesis process, chemical reaction, and the important structures, that is the chlorophyll and the stomata. So the next is about the heterotrophic nutrition. What is this heterotrophic nutrition? So in this type of nutrition, organisms get their food directly or indirectly from plants. So in this type of nutrition, directly, for example, some organisms like deer and rabbit and cow, they directly depend on the plants for their food, and some are indirectly. How the organisms indirectly depend on plants? For example, lion, so which do not depend on the plants but indirectly depends on the plant because it depend directly on the deer or rabbit, some herbivorous plants, right? So that is called as the indirect dependent. Then, so heterotrophic nutrition in all animals, fungi and some bacteria, they show the heterotrophic type of the nutrition. So in heterotrophic, we can find saprophytic nutrition. So what is this saprophytic nutrition? The first type, in this type of nutrition, organisms get their food from dead and decaying organisms. ಸೊ ಸತ್ತಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಕೊಳಿತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಪದಾರ್ಥ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಅದರಿಂದ ತಮ್ಮ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಆಬ್ಟೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್, ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ get their food from dead and decaying organisms. Okay, so they break down food materials outside their body and absorb it. So ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಮಶ್ರೂಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಸ್ಯಾಪ್ರೋಫೈಟಿಕ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು. ಸ್ಯಾಪ್ರೋಫೈಟಿಕ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡೆಡ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಡಿಕೇಯಿಂಗ್ ಮಟೀರಿಯಲ್ಸ್ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಅದನ್ನ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಸ್, ದೇ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಅಸ್ or complex nutrients into the simple and they absorb it. Okay, for example, mushrooms, ನೀವು ಕಾಮನ್ ಆಗಿ ನೋಡಿರ್ತೀರಾ ಮಶ್ರೂಮ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ as saprophytic nutrition. Then second type, that is the parasitic nutrition. So what you mean by parasites? Do you know the meaning of parasites? Parasites which cause the diseases which depend on the host organism, and also which cause the some disease without killing them. For example, so some living organism which depend on the host and absorb the nutrition from the host and cause some diseases to the host but do not kill them. Okay, so this type of the nutrition that is called as the parasitic nutrition. So this parasitic nutritive strategy is used by variety of organisms like Cuscuta. So Cuscuta, that is the plant. Okay, very important thing is the Cuscuta, that is the plant. So just I taught you that the plants are autotrophic. ನಾನು ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಹೇಳ್ದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಟೋಟ್ರೋಫಿಕ್ ಅಂತ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಸ್ಕ್ಯೂಟ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಸೈಟಿಕ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. Yes, so there is a exception. So Cuscuta, that is the parasitic plant. Okay, so the exception in plant, and which absorb the nutrients from the another plant. So ಈ ಕಸ್ಕ್ಯೂಟ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಬೇರೆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಇಂದ ಅದರ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. ನೋಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಸ್ಕ್ಯೂಟ. ಈ ಕಸ್ಕ್ಯೂಟ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬೆಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, ಅದರಿಂದ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ವಿಚ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಓನ್ ಫುಡ್. ಓಕೆ, then ticks, lice, leeches and tapeworm. So these leech which suck the blood from the organisms, and tapeworm which is also present in the organism's body, so they depend on the host. Okay, so that is the very important about the heterotrophic nutrition. Okay, so in this heterotrophic nutrition, so you can find the herbivores and the carnivores. So here plants, so these are the autotrophs, and herbivores which are directly depend on the plants, and the carnivores which are indirectly depend on the plants but directly depend on these herbivores. Okay, so this is also heterotrophic type of nutrition. Then the nutrition in amoeba. I hope you know about the amoeba, right? So amoeba, that is the single cell organism. Amoeba is the single cell organism. So how the nutrition takes place in the amoeba? Okay, so how amoeba gets its energy, how the food get digested in the amoeba. So you know that this is the amoeba which do not contain the particular size, exact size. Here you can see the amoeba with the nucleus and the food particle that is present just near the amoeba, right? Here you can find some projections, some outgrowths. What it is called? That is called as pseudopodia anta karitare alva. Pseudopodia. Pseudopodia andre enu? The outgrowth which change its shape, the finger like or the outgrowths. So by moving this outgrowth, amoeba able to move. That is called as the pseudopodia and also called as false feet. Okay. See here, the food particle is also present near the amoeba. Then the amoeba which extend the pseudopodia around that food particle. See here, the amoeba which extends the pseudopodia around the food particle. See how the pseudopodia is growing around the food particle, then which engulf the food particle. So which engulf with the food particle that is now present inside the body of the amoeba, and the digestion will take place in the food vacuole that is present in the amoeba. Okay, so this is how the nutrition takes place in amoeba, which is the very simple organism with a single cell alva. ಸೊ ಅಮೀಬಾ ಏನಿದೆ ಸಿಂಗಲ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ವೆರಿ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ಒಂದು ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ nutrition, so how the nutrition takes place, that we studied. So this is the actual diagram, so that is seen under the microscope. Okay, so this is the food particle and these are the some extensions, finger like extension that you can see around the food particle. So these are called as pseudopodia, and after this, which the pseudopodia that extend around the food particle and which is engulfed inside the body, and the food vacuoles which digest the food. Okay, so this is how the nutrition takes place in amoeba. Then the see here, amoeba takes in the food using the temporary finger-like extensions that I have already explained, and the surface which fuse over the food particle and forming the food vacuole. Then the very important topic, that is about the nutrition in human beings. So how the nutrition in human beings takes place? So the human beings, they have alimentary canal. So which includes it starts from mouth and ends with the anus, that is called as the alimentary canal. Alimentary canal, and the some digestive glands which constitute the digestive system. Okay, you know that human beings are the very complex organisms. They have and well developed organisms. They have the special system that is called as the digestive system, which includes the alimentary canal and the digestive glands. So using this, they break down the complex food materials and absorb the nutrients and get the energy. Okay, so now we are studying about the nutrition in human beings. So human beings, So they eat the food, you know that transfer of the food from outside the body to the inside, that is the source of energy. But the human beings, they are not able to absorb the nutrients directly. Okay, so ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ದೇ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ ದ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಫುಡ್. The because the nutrients are very complex, and these complex nutrients that should become the simple forms, then only our body will absorb these nutrients and get the energy. So human beings ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲೆಕ್ಸ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ, ಪ್ರೋಟೀನ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕಾರ್ಬೋಹೈಡ್ರೇಟ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಫ್ಯಾಟ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅದೇನಾಗಬೇಕು ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮಿಗೆ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ದೆನ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ our digestive system which is able to absorb these nutrients and transfer it to the blood. Okay, so now we are studying how the nutrition takes place in human beings, means how the complex food materials, they become simpler forms and get absorbed by the our body. So this process we are learning now. Okay, so the digestion in human beings means which convert the complex, I repeat this sentence, complex nutrients into simple forms. Okay, so here you can see the alimentary canal which start with the mouth and ends with the anus. Let us learn what are the different processes steps that is present in the nutrition in the human beings. Okay, so first step, that is the ingestion of the food. Ingestion of the food means through the mouth is the opening, so through the mouth. So ingestion of the food means the food that is taken inside our body. And the digestion, breakdown of that complex nutrients into simpler forms, that is called as the digestion. And the absorption. Okay, so the nutrition in human beings, that includes the ingestion, second one digestion, third one absorption, and the fourth step, that is the egestion. Egestion means removal of the waste products from the alimentary canal. Okay, so let us learn these points in detail. Okay, so in detail agi human nutrition ಅನ್ನ study ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗೋಣ. So which includes the human digestive system, that includes the digestive alimentary canal and glands, and produce the enzymes which break down the food into smaller particles. Okay, so this is the then so the first step, that is the ingestion of the food. So when you take the food inside your body, so that the first part which receives the food, that is called as the mouth. Okay, so how the digestion takes place in the mouth? So in the mouth, so several teeth are present inside the tooths are present inside the mouth, and which divide the which break down the larger particles into smaller particles. Okay, then just imagine you are eating something food. Okay, so how the teeth which chew the food and make the smaller particles. Okay, and the food that mixed with the salivary glands, the food which is mixed with the salivary glands and saliva. So saliva means what? The food that is mixed with the saliva andre enu, that is the watery substance which is present in our mouth. The water like substance which is present in our mouth, that is called as saliva, and which is secreted by salivary glands. Okay, so salivary glands in the secrete agatte. Okay, and which contain, this saliva contain one enzyme that is called as salivary amylase. Very important. Saliva, which is secreted by salivary glands. Salivary glands, and which contain the enzyme that is called as salivary amylase. So the question will be like this. The saliva contain the enzyme. So which enzyme that is called as the salivary amylase? What is the function of this salivary amylase? Very, very important. What is the function of this salivary amylase? Which convert the starch into the sugar. Which convert the starch into sugar. That is very important. Okay. So there is a question, so which was asked in previous exams, some exams. So 1 mark question. Okay. When you eat the chapati by chewing, so it tastes sweet. Why? So if you eat chapatis by chewing continuously, it tastes sweet. Why? Because the enzyme present in the saliva, salivary amylase, which convert the starch present in the food, present in the chapati into sugar. So sugar that is having the sweet taste, okay, which convert the enzyme salivary amylase, which convert the starch into sugar. So only the digestion of the starch takes place in the mouth. Okay, only the digestion of the starch. There is no digestion of the protein and the fats. Okay, so next, the digestion process in the stomach. So in the stomach, the partial digestion of the nutrients takes place. Partial digestion of the food takes place. See, this is the stomach. The walls of the stomach, which contain some glands that is called as gastric glands. Okay, the walls of the stomach which contain some gastric glands. Glands means which secretes the some chemicals. Okay, so which secretes these glands present in the walls of the stomach, which secretes the HCl, hydrochloric acid, then mucus, then pepsin. Okay, so these are the 3 important chemicals that is secreted by the walls of the stomach. What are all the 3 important? HCl, mucus and pepsin. The gastric glands, where they are present in the walls of the stomach. Just imagine, this is the walls of the stomach. This walls of the stomach that contain the gastric glands. So that secretes the hydrochloric acid, mucus and pepsin. Okay. What is the function of this HCl in stomach and what is the function of mucus and pepsin? Pepsin break down the protein. Hydrochloric acid creates an acidic medium which facilitates the action of the enzyme pepsin. So you know that the function of the pepsin that break down the proteins. Okay. But the pepsin that will only work when the medium is acidic. So HCl provide the acidic medium for the pepsin to work. Okay. Then what is the function of this mucus? Mucus protects the inner lining of the stomach from the action of the acid under the normal condition. So in a normal condition, that HCl that may damage the walls of the stomach. So the mucus, that is the gelatinous substance that protect the inner lining of the stomach from the action of the acid in the normal condition. Okay, so this is the function of the stomach. Here also the partial digestion of the protein takes place, not the complete one. Okay, so in the mouth also partial digestion, in the stomach although also ಪಾರ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಡೈಜೆಷನ್. ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಡೈಜೆಷನ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾಗತ್ತೆ? The very important one, very important one, in the small intestine. Okay, the complete digestion and absorption of the food takes place in the small intestine. Very important one. So the complete digestion takes place in which part of the digestive system? Stomach, mouth, small intestine, large intestine. The correct answer is the small intestine. Okay, the food is mixed with the bile. So in the first step of the digestion in the intestine, from the liver and pancreatic juice from the pancreas, bile breaks down the fats into small globules. Okay, see here, see the diagram here. The small intestine, this is the small intestine. Here you can see the liver which secretes the bile and stored in the gallbladder, right? Here you can find the bile duct, so which is connected to the small intestine, and the small intestine which receives the bile juice that is secreted by the liver, bile juice from the liver, and the intestine, sorry, and pancreatic juice. Here you can just below the stomach, here you can see the pancreas, right? So here it is named pancreas. This is pancreas. So which receives the small intestine receives the pancreatic juice from the pancreas. Okay, so what is the function, how they help in the digestion? Through a common bile duct. So here this is the bile duct which transfer the bile juice to the small intestine. Then how they help in the digestion? So here bile juice which act on the fat. Okay, so the fat that is in the large globule like fats, and which divide the larger globules of fats into small globules. Okay, small globules. So that is similar as the emulsification of the, that is also called as emulsification of the fat. Large globules of the fat that is converted into small globules by the action of bile juice. Okay, and why this conversion is very important? Because the enzymes are not able to break down the large globules of the fat. Okay, so this process is required. This is the function of the bile juice. Then the second important thing is about the pancreatic juice. So the pancreatic juice, so that contain the enzymes trypsin. Very important, please remember the enzyme name trypsin, which acts on proteins and lipase, breaks down the, which acts on protein and lipase, breaks down the fats. So the pancreatic juice which contain the trypsin which act on the protein, okay, which helpful for the protein digestion. And lipase, very important, the enzyme names are very important. Lipase, so that break down the small globules of the fats, okay, so which involved in the fat digestion. Then again, so this is look like a intestine, right? So this is the small intestine. The walls of the intestine also secretes the intestinal juice. Okay, the walls of the intestine also receives the intestinal juice, and finally it contains some enzymes, so which convert the protein into amino acids, so that is the final simpler form of protein, and fat into carbohydrate into glucose, that is the simplest form, and the fat into fatty acids and glycerol. Fats into fatty acid and glycerol. So these all are fatty acids and glycerol, amino acids and the glucose. These are all the simplest form of nutrients. Okay, that is not a complex form, that is the simplest form of the nutrients that is absorbed by the walls of the intestine. Okay, so see how the digestion takes place in the intestine. The first step is about the bile juice, where it is secreted and how it is carried to the small intestine, which act on the fat, convert the large globules of fat into small globules. Okay, then it receives the pancreatic juice, which is secreted from the pancreas, pancreatic juice, which contain the enzymes that is called as lipase, which act on the these small globules of fat, and the trypsin, which act on the partially digested protein. Okay, then in the third step, intestinal juice. Intestinal juice secreted by the walls of the intestine. It contains the enzymes. Finally, it contains the partially digested protein into amino acids. Finally, which convert into amino acids and carbohydrate, that is the complex form, carbohydrate, partially converted carbohydrate into glucose. Then the fats into fatty acid, and glycerol. Okay, so these all are the simpler form of the nutrients that is absorbed by the walls of the intestine. So this is how the digestion takes place in the intestine, and also the absorption also takes place in the intestine. So the walls of the intestine that has the finger like projection, which increases the surface area for the absorption. So the absorption also, the large amount of absorption of these nutrients also takes place inside the small intestine, and the specialized structure, finger like structure present inside the small intestine, that is called as the villi. Okay, so can say that the complete digestion and the absorption of food takes place in the small intestine, and the small intestine has the specialized structures which increases the area of the absorption. So area increase ಆಗತ್ತೆ, ಈ ತರ ಫಿಂಗರ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಪ್ಷನ್ ಏರಿಯಾ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ದ villi. Okay, then the undigested waste products that is transferred to the large intestine, and mainly in the large intestine the absorption of the water takes place. Okay, then the remaining undigested food that is removed through the anus. Okay, so the in the large intestine there is no digestion, only absorption of some small amount of water, and the undigested food that is removed through the anus. Okay, so this is how the nutrition in human beings takes place, how the complex food forms that is uh, divided into simpler forms and absorbed by our body. Okay, so this is about the complete digestion, very very important for your exam. Okay, so how they ask the question, the digestion in the mouth, the enzyme name, and how it act on the starch, that is very important, and the stomach, the three important things which is secreted by the stomach, and the function, that is very important, and the intestine. Explain the digestion in the small intestine, explain the digestion in the stomach. This is the very common question that was asked in the many question paper. Okay, so you can see these questions repeatedly. Explain the digestion in the stomach, explain the digestion in the small intestine. Very very important one. Okay, I hope you understood these all points. Okay, thank you dear students. If you have any doubts, just write it in the comment box. Thank you.